The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
Welcome in. Facebook Live. Happy to be with you. Joe C. from XL Primetime, our head coach, Dave Campo. And we like to jump on Facebook at least once a week, especially now that we have the OTAs. Now, last week, we were waiting for you to come back from golfing. Remember? You were playing in the J-Fund. So we got, because that was our last opportunity, was last Monday to watch OTA practices. But we've got something to talk about today as you, me, Leon Searcy, a handful of other 1010XLers were out. So let's talk some Jaguar football.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, no helmets or pads.
Yeah.
So
just shorts.
You see some athletic ability. That's what all you really see. Although, I'll tell you, there was some good shots of the front people going after the sleds and stuff like that. So I think I got something out of this morning.
All right, I like that part of it because this is when a head coach drills down. And I've got my sheet. I like to show you the flip card because basically it gives you all the new names and faces, okay? And we'll talk about it on XL Primetime today. But it gives you all these position groups. And you've got a dozen wide receivers, coach. You've got 18 defensive backs. You've got 14 linebackers. You got 11 offensive linemen. You've got 16 offensive linemen, 11 defensive linemen. Bottom line is we got a ton of guys that we're going to sort through over the handful of days, and they got to get from 90 down to 53.
Yeah, well, that's what this time is all about because, there's always been some guys that were not necessarily high on the radar that end up making a football team and doing some things that can help a team win. So, first of all, you have to have a number of receivers and defensive backs because of the injury factor,
right.
The soft tissue injuries, those kind of things. You got to make sure that those guys don't get overtaxed. So one thing about this football team right now is there's some athletes out there, and that's a positive for me.
Yeah, it's funny because I think what we're trying to do is look at the brand new free agents, look at the rookie class that's come in, and then look at how things operationally might be different. You have a different defensive coordinator. You got a lot of different defensive coaches. You've got maybe a nice debate brewing among Jaguar Nation as to who's calling plays, who's running this offense. What about some of that?
Well, that's great. I mean, that's what we got going out there. And I like it because this is a time that you really find out the mental part and the athletic part of your football team. You guys, obviously they're not going to be hitting all that, but they definitely have an opportunity to go out and show how they take the learning in the classroom out onto the football field. And the one thing that I'm noticing is it looks like guys know what they're doing out there, which means, in my opinion, from what I've heard and what I see, there's some teaching going on out there. And I think that's what's important.
Okay, so that's a huge plus. And we can tell you that we're seeing all the right things and that things are looking better than last year, but we really, really don't know. His eyes know more than my eyes do. But at the same time, we really don't know until we get into some real competitive situations when the pads go on. Like, I'll just use Brian Thomas Jr. as an example. Dude looks the part, okay? This is your first opportunity coming out of rookie minicamp to see him. He looks the part. He is blazing fast. He's a big body. Hands go up. Nice throw from Trevor, which would have been 6 points. But at the same time, once you get hit, then we're going to find out whether you're real or not.
Yeah, and one of the most fun parts of the morning, as far as the offense was concerned, was me watching Dewey Wingard try to run across the field on that play you're talking about. And it was like a plow horse against a thoroughbred. That kid can run, Thomas.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, that puts a lot of pressure, especially on crossing routes. If you can get them on the safeties, it's all over.
Okay, so let's use that one as an example. And another one that I'm pretty sure you were right there close to me when you saw this. Evan Ingram is doing a crosser, goes up in the air. I tweeted it was a leave your feet catch. And it was Tyson Campbell giving chase. He wasn't quite where he wanted or needed to be. Bottom line is, hello, middle of the field.
Yeah.
This team needs to use that part of the field.
Well, Ingram and Kirk are the guys that can do that for sure. And listen, just to help out Tyson Campbell some, that took an awful long time to throw that ball across the field there. You know, it was a man-to-man coverage. Right. I'm not concerned because, you know, he was close enough to make the tackle, and it had to be a good throw.
Right. And what you're saying then, translation to our Jaguar fans, is that in a real live game, Trevor would have had to gotten rid of that football a lot faster.
Yeah, most likely. And he probably might have been open for earlier. But he was wide open at that one because it's hard for a DB to cover a guy. And that's a great thing about Ingram. You know, Ingram's a receiver playing tight end.
Yeah, he is.
And you know, it's pretty hard to cover those guys on a crossing route if there's time. And that's what we're hoping is Trevor's going to have more time this year than he had a year ago to be able to make those kind of throws.
Yeah. And so when we look at the sum total of talent, there's a couple guys that have popped out of the backfield. I like what they're doing with Dearness Johnson. I think Tank Bigsby is now in a position, Doug Peterson said it, and Press Taylor, for that matter, said it in the pressers beforehand, is that they need to lean on that guy. Press even might have said, Coach, and you help me with your interpretation of it, that he regrets a little bit not going to Tank in more crucial situations.
Yeah, well, you know, and obviously in deference to the coaching staff, you know, when he made those early season blunders,
right,
it's a trust issue. And, you know, you got critical situations during the ball game where, you know, you're either behind or it's close. You got to trust the guys that can come out there and play. And, you know, it's almost like, okay, do we take ETN off the field in this situation?
Yeah.
And they're going to have to do that some this year, just from the standpoint of they put too much of a workload on ETN a year ago. So those guys, Dearness Johnson and Bigsby and those guys are going to have to come through.
Yeah.
I have a lot of confidence in Bigsby. You know that I feel that it's going to, you really can't tell what's going to happen with Bigsby, with obviously Hodges after the injury, with the tight end.
Brenton Strange.
Until the second and third year. The first year, you know, some guys come out, man, they're ready to go right away. Other guys, it's a little bit of a time factor.
Yeah, and look, like I think Coach is the sanest, smartest one of all of us. But at the same time,
I don't know about that.
But at the same time, when you draft a guy that high, you are expecting to see results sooner. You want that return on your investment. And I'm having a conversation with a Jack guy as we're walking along the field today, and we're watching some of this stuff. And Brenton Strange does look good. He does have an opportunity to do something. But I made the point on the air last week, Coach, is that if you're a bulky basher, which I can be from time to time, he's operating on 1/5 success in his first 4 rounds last year. Anton Harrison, the only success that you really can truly point to, and he had 5 picks in the first 4 rounds. Brenton Strange, not a lot of contributions. Tank Bigsby, we just went over it. The 2 defensive players, Ventrell Miller and Tyler Lacey, hardly any. We know Ventrell was hurt and then was gone. Now you go this year, and you're going to find out what the first 5 look like. You know Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a hit. But if you're operating off of 1/5 in your first 4 rounds in terms of contributions coming out of the draft, you're in trouble.
Well, first of all, I think that's a little bit too early to make that decision. Again, I've said this, you know that.
Yeah.
I don't really count guys in those early rounds to really be big-time contributors unless they're just something special.
Okay.
And once you pass that first round, when you start getting into the second round, third round, fourth round, you'd like to think those guys are going to contribute, but that's not a guarantee. No. And I go way back to where, you know, even the good teams that we had, it just wasn't automatic that those guys were going to come in and perform. So, again, I'm not faulting you from the standpoint that you'd like to see those guys be a little bit more productive, and they tried to make Bigsby productive. But when he messed up a few, I'm sure that Press Taylor would have said it today. You know, the trust is not there.
Yeah, you stop yourself from taking another chance is basically what you do.
It's a gamble. You put the guy out there in a critical situation, which if you're not beating teams by 20, every situation is critical.
Very,
no
very
matter
true.
where it is in the ballgame.
Very true. And let me just go back real quick on the 1/5 success rate in the draft. I'm already second guessing it a little bit because I don't know whether Mason Smith is going to be a huge contributor with the second round selection. I don't know whether Jarian Jones. I like what I see from him, but I don't know if he's going to be anything more than a guy that is going to get a number of snaps, but he's not going to take over a job. And so those are the two, the second and third. I'll look at that fourth round, obviously with a wait and see attitude. On that fourth round, Javon Foster does look pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a big cat that can move.
Yeah, I feel almost better about this second and third and fourth round picks than I did a year ago.
Okay.
I really think that.
I like what I see too.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you there.
Just watching Jarian Jones run around, and again, I'm like you. I don't know 100%, but just watching him move around, his quickness and his acceleration and the way he operates, the way he plays.
Nose for the football.
Yeah, he's around the ball.
Yeah.
There's no question. I watched the defensive line today on the sleds. And let me tell you something. The two guys that we got there, Jefferson, powerful.
He does look strong.
Really powerful, big and powerful. Mason Smith, really athletic, really quick feet and length.
The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
So I'm hopeful for those guys.
Right.
I really think that they're going to be in the rotation this year.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if they're not.
Yeah, and let's clarify this one thing, which is really important. We don't know, and I'm also a hotty-toddy Prince fan, Deontay Prince, the fifth round. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do, particularly on special teams. But let's make this one thing clear, is that on the defensive line, a second and a fourth round draft pick, Mason Smith and Jordan Jefferson, can both have significant impact because they rotate a lot more.
Correct. And that's true. And it's going to be interesting to see if Jarian can lock down a position.
Okay.
That's going to be the interesting thing. But regardless of that, the one thing that I came away with today is something that we've said right along. This is a bigger, faster football team. I'm telling you, the other guy that's powerful in that front is Hamilton.
He looks much better.
If he's 100%, they're going to be much stronger in the defensive line with Armstead and those guys and Roy Robertson Harris.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good inside group, let me tell you.
Yeah, and let's not dismiss how significant it's not even correct to say an injury, how significant an illness that Devon Hamilton had.
Yeah.
That was big, and you lose strength. You may not lose all of your weight, but you lose a tremendous amount of strength.
Well, he's powerful right now. I can tell you that. The way he hit the sled, you can tell. The guys that really jack it up and have some power to them.
All right, so let's finish out with just a couple of things that you were not able to see in the rookie minicamp. You got to see Eric Armstead. So Eric Armstead next to Devon Hamilton, when that all comes together, we're talking about experience, playmaking ability, 3 technique, and a nose. I know you got to like that.
When I walked by him, 2 things stuck out to me. He looks like a 50-year-old Shaquille O'Neal. He is one big dude.
Yeah.
But he's long in the tooth in comparison to looking at those young guys.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, he's a good player. I'm really looking forward to see what he can do, and especially if you have a good rotation.
Yes.
In other words, if he doesn't have to play every down, he's going to be a much better player.
Yeah, if you can get him in a 35 to 45 snap count, you're going to have a fresh Eric Armstead.
Absolutely.
And you're also going to have a smart guy, like you said, that can help a Devon Hamilton and a Mason Smith. Oh, yeah. And by the way, Coach,
knock those passes down, baby, if you can't get there.
So let's think about this real quick. And this is something that I have, beat the drum on. They do not, at least in recent memory, they do not affect the quarterback by crashing the interior part of that pocket. They don't disrupt him. And so that's where Eric Armstead and maybe Mason Smith
That's what I was going
can
to
come
say.
in.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, athletically, size and all that, those two guys are, well, Roy Robertson Harris is pretty good too if he's healthy.
Yeah.
So I really think that they're going to be, I think the rotation of the defensive line is getting closer to what we had with the Jaguars when I was here, and we definitely had with the Cowboys when we were winning a lot of games. Now, some of the other positions, whether or not the receivers, they got no pads on, running around. I'm not sure those guys, they all look athletic to me when, the DBs the same way. The one thing that stuck out to me in that end, though, was that they were switching positions all the time, which is kind of what Ryan O'Neal said.
Ryan Nielsen. Ryan Nielsen.
I'm back at what's the name of it? Ryan O'Neal.
You went back to Hollywood with him. Yeah.
But so there were 4 guys that played nickel today. So that's what this is all about. Find the guys that can play some positions and show what they can do.
Okay, hit that with us, because Darnell Savage is a guy they're looking at, safety/nickel. There's certainly other guys. Antonio Johnson kind of hit what you saw as far as all those guys being kind of moving in and out of that spot.
Well, Gregory was in
Gregory
there.
Jr.
Of course, Jurian was in there.
Yeah, yep.
And then
Savage and
Savage was in there some, not very much. I think he's still coming off of an injury.
Right.
But
and then Antonio Johnson.
He was not in there either. But the other guy was one of the other DBs. I lose my train of thought every once in a while. Let me see that.
Yeah, because you got so many of them.
Yeah.
And you
from last year, Braswell.
Yeah.
Braswell was in there. So, I mean, they're rotating a bunch of guys around in different positions for sure.
And that's what I like, because he can see it a heck of a lot more often than I could see it. I'm looking around, eyes are everywhere, and I'm seeing some alignment, but I couldn't quite tell who was moving in on that nickel spot. And we've said it, and you've really kind of stressed it to us. This is more of a 4-2-5 defense. Explain that to everybody.
Well, first of all, the majority of the time when the offense dictates with putting extra receivers in, they're going to be a 4-man line. And the 2 linebackers, and then the nickel back is the 3rd linebacker. So it's really a 4-3, but it's a 4-2-5 because you got 5 DBs in there. Yeah. Now, today they used a lot of their base front. The offense was using a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends and 2 wides and 1 back. So I got to see a couple, though. Everybody's wondering who the Sam linebacker is going to be when they go base. That's the guy that's going to line up on the tight end. Okay. It's Muma.
Yeah, which suggests to you that Muma's going to have the coverage responsibility on the tight end
Muma's going to be on the tight end. They're still going to be a 4-man line because they're kicking the front down to where they're in a 4-man line. We call it an under defense, where they're covering the weak tackle, the weak guard, the front side of the center, a 5 technique, and then an outside linebacker on the tight end. And the 2 guys that worked there the most today was Muma and 56.
Okay.
From last year.
Right. Now, this means Devin Lloyd can be free on the other side.
Well, he's a weak side linebacker.
Right. 100%.
He's the linebacker that can come up on the weak side. He can stay covered down on the weak side.
Right.
He's the running linebacker.
And this is a little bit of a unique, or I don't know whether unique's the right word, different position for Yasir Abdullah, 56.
Yeah, 56. Right.
So in other words, you like what they're, because I saw him last.
It's his only way
to make
making this football team,
and make an impact.
Opinion.
And make an impact.
Right. Special teams and being a Sam linebacker if there was a problem, or whether he beats Muma out or not. I don't know that. But the other thing they were doing with Muma was when they were working scheme stuff against scout team, just the linebackers, Muma was following one of the linebackers around. So you had you had 33 and you had 23.
Yeah, Devin Lloyd and
Foye are the two starters, and then Muma was behind Foye, and every time they would do something, he would just move with them.
Okay.
So Muma's going to be one of the guys that can play a couple of different positions.
Right. He potentially could have the green dot on his helmet.
Correct.
He could be the middle linebacker in certain situations if Foye were to go down. So
Correct.
that's just, and then he obviously could be the strong side linebacker.
And that's what he's going to be, in my opinion.
Okay, back to Abdullah, because I saw this a little bit last week, and I know that you were in the Tom Coughlin J-Fun golf tournament, so you didn't see it. But I felt like there was maybe some wide nine going on where they're going to kick him down to where he might be able to get around a right tackle. I don't think they would line him up on the tight end side. But anyway, he could still be that type of pass rusher.
Yeah, I think he's really he's going to be a role player in my mind. He could be a backup Sam. I think Muma's going to win the job if that's the way they're going to go.
Right.
But I think he can be a backup there, and he still can be a situational pass rusher if that's what he ends up, doing.
All right. Anything else that popped out to you today? Gabe Davis not working out. He's out on the field, but he's not in team. And the way Doug Peterson said it is they're going to take it very slow with him.
Right.
He's coming off of PCL, which is crazy to think, Coach, but that PCL was, I believe, in the last regular season game.
Right.
So we're talking about a lot of time here. But anyway, they're taking it very slow with him.
Yeah, and he's going to be ready for training camp, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But the other thing that kind of stuck out to me, first of all, I still like the receiver, the kid that's the extra guy, the guy that is a backup.
Yeah, Devin Duvernay is a guy that they brought in.
I like Duvernay.
And then Tim Jones and Elijah Cooks. And
the other kid, Cephas.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Joshua Cephas is an undrafted guy.
Just watching him run around.
Yeah.
But the other thing that stuck out to me a little bit was Gibson. As far as his athletic ability.
He's a guy that was signed a little bit later in the free agency period, Travis Gibson. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. He might be that third pass rusher.
Okay. And he easily could be that. Look, this is the question we asked heading into the draft, and this was after Gibson was signed. Do they have a true quality backup to come in behind Trayvon or Josh Allen?
Yeah, I think
we don't know that yet.
I know it's him right now.
Right, for right now.
He's played. I mean, he's a good football player. Yeah. Whether or not he can get 6-7 sacks as a backup or 5 or 6 sacks, whatever, we don't know that. He struggled a little bit the last couple of years, but I really think at one time he was a pretty good pass rusher. So I think maybe they feel like he can regain that form.
Yeah, he played with the Bears.
He's got the association with Shuey, the linebacker coach.
Right.
So he kind of knows what he can do.
Anybody else before we get out of here? I love what I see from Mitch Morse.
Yep.
The way that Press Taylor described it, maybe even Doug described it, is that he runs that offensive line room, and if he wants to stop down and say, hey, let's clarify something, he looks good.
He's the kind of a solidifier.
Yeah.
He's not going to be what he was 5-6 years ago.
Right.
But he's a solidifier. He's a consistent player. And he's not going to get run over. Those three things are what you need in there for sure.
And he's a 10-year vet. But Jason Kelsey made a good long living up in Philadelphia and kind of the same guy. So
Absolutely.
We'll see. All right, Coach, good stuff. We got XL Primetime coming up, so you guys check us out 2 to 4 right here on the Superstation. Joe C. along with Dave Campo, and we appreciate you guys hanging out with us.
This presentation of the Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air, fast and reliable AC service.